The wind outside howled like a wounded beast. Ice crystals struck the reinforced windows of Research Station Gamma with sharp, angry sounds. Inside the main laboratory, Kestra Vorn barely looked up from her data screens. The flashing red lights meant nothing to her cold, calculating mind. Around the station, other species rushed through corridors with their young ones clutched tight. The Morphans wrapped their children in thermal blankets. The Kelrothi carried their offspring in protective pods. Even the usually calm Vestrians moved with urgent purpose, guiding their young to the emergency shelters deep within the station's core. Kestra watched them through the transparent walls of her lab. Her scaled face showed no expression. Her yellow eyes tracked the movement with scientific interest, nothing more. Weakness, she thought. All of them showing weakness. The Zhaan did not coddle their young. They did not rush to protect them from every danger. A child learned strength by facing the cold universe alone. That was the way. That had always been the way. Her clawed fingers moved across the control panel. Data about atmospheric pressure and ice crystal formation filled her screens. The storm would be massive. The readings showed wind speeds that could tear metal from stone. Temperatures would drop to levels that could freeze most beings solid in mere minutes. Still, Kestra did not move toward the shelters. Her work was important. The data she collected during these storms helped predict future weather patterns across the entire sector. Lives depended on this information. Surely that was more valuable than running away like the others. Behind her, in the corner of the lab, small Selen played with a collection of ice samples. The child was only 5 cycles old. Selen's scales were still soft, not yet hardened by age and cold. The young one pressed tiny hands against the containers, watching frost form patterns on the glass. Kestra glanced back once. "Stay in the lab," she said. Her voice carried no warmth, no concern. Just a simple instruction. Selen nodded, eyes wide and curious. The station's alarm system grew louder. A mechanical voice echoed through every corridor. "All personnel to emergency shelters. Storm impact in 15 minutes. This is not a drill. All personnel to emergency shelters immediately." Kestra ignored it. 15 minutes was plenty of time. She needed just 10 more minutes to finish this data collection. The storm's approach gave her readings that only came once every few years. To waste this opportunity seemed foolish. Other scientists fled past her lab. A Morphan researcher paused at her door. "Kestra, you must come now. Bring your child." "I will come when my work is finished," Kestra replied without turning around. The Morphan made a distressed sound and hurried away. Kestra allowed herself a small sense of superiority. These emotional species let fear control them. They abandoned important work to run and hide. The Zhaan were stronger than that. Logic guided them, not panic. Another 5 minutes passed. The wind grew stronger. The station's structure groaned under the pressure. Lights flickered as power systems struggled against the incoming storm. Kestra saved her final data readings. She backed up the information to 3 separate storage systems. Only then did she turn from her screens. "Selen, we go to the shelters now," she announced. Silence answered her. Kestra's eyes swept the lab. The corner where Selen had been playing was empty. The ice sample container sat abandoned on the floor. "Selen," Kestra called again. Still no response. For the first time in many years, something uncomfortable stirred in Kestra's chest. It was not quite fear. The Zhaan did not feel fear. But it was something close. Something she had no name for. She moved through the lab quickly, checking behind equipment and storage units. "Selen, answer me. This is not a game." The lab was empty. Kestra stepped into the corridor. Most of the lights had dimmed to emergency power. Red warning beacons flashed at every intersection. The corridors were deserted now. Everyone else had already reached the shelters. "Selen." Kestra's voice echoed off the metal walls. A sound reached her ears. Very faint. Very distant. It might have been the wind. Or it might have been something else. Kestra moved down the corridor following the sound. Her logical mind told her to go to the shelters. The child would either survive or not. That was nature's way. The strong lived. The weak did not. But her feet kept moving forward. She reached a junction where 3 corridors met. One led to the shelters. One led to the dormitories. The third led to the maintenance sections. That faint sound came again. From the maintenance corridor. Kestra's eyes widened. The maintenance sections had poor heating. During storms, those areas became death traps. No one went there when ice storms hit. She ran. Her claws clicked on the metal floor. The uncomfortable feeling in her chest grew stronger. Ahead, she saw something that made her stop. A blast door was closing. These massive doors sealed off dangerous sections during emergencies. Once closed, they would not open again until the storm passed. Through the narrowing gap, Kestra saw a small figure. Selen stood in the maintenance corridor, holding something that glowed with soft blue light. An ice crystal. A pretty, glowing ice crystal that must have fallen from a broken cooling unit. "Selen!" Kestra shouted. She sprinted forward. The child looked up. Those wide, innocent eyes showed no understanding of danger. Kestra was still 20 meters away when the blast door sealed shut with a final, terrible boom. She crashed into the door. Her fists hammered against the metal. "Selen! Selen!" No answer came. The door was too thick. Even if the child screamed, Kestra would not hear it. Warning lights flashed around the sealed door. A display screen showed the temperature beyond. It was already dropping. In the maintenance corridors, the heating systems shut down completely during storms to save power for the main station. Kestra's hands moved across the control panel beside the door. Emergency override. She entered her command codes. Access denied. Blast door sealed until storm passes. She tried again. The same message appeared. Kestra pressed her scaled forehead against the cold metal door. Beyond it, somewhere in the freezing darkness, was Selen. Small, soft-scaled Selen who had never known real cold. Whose body needed warmth to function. The Zhaan did not feel fear. They did not feel panic. They did not feel the desperate clawing sensation that now tore through Kestra's chest. But in that moment, pressed against the unyielding door with her child trapped beyond it, Kestra learned that her people had been wrong about many things. The storm hit the station with the force of a hammer. The entire structure shook. The lights went out completely for 3 seconds before emergency power kicked in. Kestra stood alone in the dim corridor. For the first time in her life, she understood what true helplessness felt like. And somewhere in the freezing maintenance corridors, Selen was alone in the dark. Tommy Wright was not supposed to be in the maintenance corridors. His shift had ended 20 minutes ago. He should have been in the emergency shelters with everyone else, drinking hot coffee and waiting for the storm to pass. But Tommy had heard a strange noise in the heating system during his final check. A clicking sound that should not be there. Probably meant nothing. Maybe just ice forming in the wrong place. But Tommy could not leave without checking. His father had been an engineer too. The old man always said the same thing. Take care of the small problems before they become big ones. So Tommy grabbed his toolkit and headed into the maintenance corridor. Just a quick check, he told himself. 5 minutes, then straight to the shelters. The corridor was already cold. Tommy's breath came out in white clouds. The temperature display on his suit showed -30 degrees and dropping fast. The storm was closer than the warnings had said. Tommy moved quickly through the narrow passage. Pipes lined the walls, most of them already covered in frost. His boots crunched on ice that had formed on the metal floor. The clicking sound was louder now. Tommy followed it around a corner. He found the problem. A coolant line had cracked. Cold liquid dripped onto the floor, freezing instantly. Tommy pulled out his repair torch. This would take 10 minutes to fix properly. Maybe he did not have 10 minutes. The storm warnings were getting more urgent. The mechanical voice kept repeating the same message over and over. Seek shelter immediately. He was about to turn back when he heard something else. Not the clicking of the broken pipe. Not the howl of the wind outside. Something different. A whimper. Small and frightened. Tommy froze. "Hello?" he called out. The whimpering stopped. Tommy moved forward carefully. The corridor ahead was darker. The emergency lights barely worked here. He pulled out his flashlight and swept the beam across the darkness. 2 yellow eyes reflected the light back at him. Tommy's heart jumped. Then he saw what it was. A child. A Zhaan child, small and trembling, huddled against the wall. The little one held something that glowed blue. An ice crystal. "Hey there," Tommy said softly. He knew better than to make sudden moves around scared kids. Any species, same rule. Move slow and speak gentle. The child stared at him with wide, terrified eyes. Tommy knelt down. The cold bit through his pants immediately. "It's okay. I'm Tommy. What's your name?" The child's mouth moved but no sound came out. The little one was shaking hard. Not from fear, Tommy realized. From cold. Zhaan were cold-blooded. Tommy had learned that in the station briefing. They needed external heat to keep their bodies working. In this temperature, this child would not last long. "We need to get you warm," Tommy said. He reached out slowly. The child flinched back. "I won't hurt you," Tommy promised. "But we have to go now. It's too cold here." As if agreeing with him, the station shuddered. The storm had arrived. Tommy heard the massive blast doors slamming shut throughout the facility. Heavy booms echoed through the maintenance corridors. The temperature display on Tommy's suit changed. -50 degrees. -60. The numbers kept dropping. Tommy did not wait any longer. He scooped the child up. The little one felt like ice in his arms. Those small scales were not designed for this kind of cold. He started back the way he came. But when he rounded the corner, his heart sank. A blast door had sealed shut right in front of him. The way back was blocked. Tommy stared at the massive door. It would not open again until the storm passed. That could be hours. He looked down at the child in his arms. Hours would be far too long. Okay, Tommy said, more to himself than to the child. Okay. We find another way. He turned and ran deeper into the maintenance corridors. There had to be another exit. These passages connected all over the station. Surely one path would still be open. The temperature kept dropping. -70. -80. The child in Tommy's arms had stopped shaking. That was worse than the shaking. It meant the cold was winning. Tommy felt panic trying to creep in. He pushed it down. Panic killed people. His father had taught him that too. When things go wrong, you think clear and you move fast. He found a small junction room. Several corridors branched off in different directions. Tommy checked each one quickly. Blast doors had sealed them all. They were trapped. The child made a weak sound. Those yellow eyes were starting to close. No, 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 Tommy said. Stay awake. You have to stay awake. But the child was losing consciousness. The cold was shutting down the small body. Tommy made a decision. He set the child down for just a moment. His fingers fumbled with the fasteners on his thermal suit. The suit had layers. An outer shell for protection. An inner liner that trapped heat. He pulled off the liner. The cold hit him immediately. It felt like knives against his skin. Tommy wrapped the liner around the child like a blanket. But it was not enough. The child needed more than insulation. The child needed heat. Tommy picked up the small form again. He unzipped his outer jacket and pulled the child inside against his chest. Skin to scale. His body heat would have to be enough. The cold attacked Tommy from all sides now. Without the thermal liner, his suit provided much less protection. He could feel the temperature trying to freeze his bones. But the child's skin felt a tiny bit warmer against him. Tommy started moving again. He had to keep moving. If he stopped, if he sat down, they would both freeze here. He walked through corridor after corridor. Every path ended in a sealed blast door. The station's emergency systems had locked down every section. Tommy's fingers started going numb. His face burned from the cold. Each breath hurt his lungs. The child stirred against his chest. A small hand pressed against his skin. The little one was waking up. Tommy's body heat was working. That's it, Tommy whispered. His voice shook from the cold. Stay with me. -100 degrees. -120. Tommy could not feel his feet anymore. He stumbled and caught himself against a wall. His palms stuck to the frozen metal for a second before he pulled it away. Skin came off with it. He kept walking. His mind started playing tricks on him. The corridors seemed to stretch longer. The lights seemed dimmer. He could not remember which direction he was going. But he could still feel the child against his chest. Still feel that small body depending on his warmth. Tommy found a maintenance hub. A small room with computer terminals and some old equipment. One terminal still had power. A small orange light blinked on its panel. Tommy's frozen fingers could barely work. But he managed to activate the terminal. He found the emergency beacon system. With the last of his strength, he triggered it. A signal would go out. Someone would know they were here. Hopefully someone would come. Tommy slid down the wall. He could not walk anymore. His body had nothing left to give. He pulled the child closer, trying to share what little warmth remained. The cold was winning now. Tommy could feel it. But the child was still breathing. That had to be enough. Kestra ran through the emergency shelter like a creature possessed. Other survivors stared at her as she passed. They had never seen a Zhaan move with such desperate energy. The Zhaan were always calm. Always controlled. Always logical. But logic had abandoned Kestra the moment that blast door sealed. She found the emergency coordinator near the main communication center. His name was Wright. He was a Kelrothi, tall and covered in gray fur. He managed all crisis situations at the station. My child, Kestra said. Her voice sounded strange even to her own ears. My child is trapped in the maintenance corridors. Section 7. You must send rescue teams. Vrill's face showed sympathy. But his voice remained steady and professional. The blast doors are sealed, Kestra. Nothing can be done until the storm passes. Then unseal them, Kestra demanded. I cannot. The system is automatic during ice storms. Opening those doors would compromise the entire station. We would all die. Kestra's claws dug into the edge of his desk. Selen will die if we wait. Vril looked uncomfortable. He glanced at his screens, checking data that Kestra could not see. The temperature in Section 7 is already minus 100 degrees. I am sorry, Kestra. Truly sorry. But your child is likely already gone. Those words hit Kestra like a physical blow. Already gone. The cold, practical assessment of loss. Exactly what a Zhaan would say. Exactly what Kestra herself would have said if this had been someone else's child. No, Kestra said. No. Selen is alive. I know it. But how did she know? The Zhaan did not have instincts about their young. They did not have feelings that told them when their children were in danger. That was emotional weakness. That was the behavior of lesser species. Yet Kestra knew. Deep in her chest, in that uncomfortable place that had been growing since she pressed her head against the blast door, she knew her child still lived. A human woman approached. Her name was Sarah Mills. She worked in hydroponics. Kestra had spoken to her a few times but knew little about her. Vril, Sarah said quietly. What about Tommy Wright? He was doing final checks in the maintenance section. Did he make it to shelter? Vril checked his roster. His expression changed. Tommy is not here. His emergency beacon is not active in any of the shelter zones. Sarah's face went pale. Then he's still out there. In those corridors. I am sorry, Vril said again. You seem to say that phrase often. We cannot risk a rescue team. The storm will last at least 4 more hours. We must wait. Sarah slammed her hand on the desk. Kestra had never seen a human show such anger. Tommy would not wait if it was one of us out there. You know that. Everyone here knows that. Vril said nothing. He simply looked at his screens. Kestra stared at Sarah. This Tommy. You think he might have found Selen? If there's a kid in trouble, Tommy would find them, Sarah said. Her voice was tight with emotion. That's just who he is. Probably got himself trapped trying to help. For a moment, hope flared in Kestra's chest. Then logic crushed it down. But if he is human, he cannot survive the cold either. His body temperature requirements are even higher than a Zhaan's. I know, Sarah whispered. I know. The 2 females stood in silence. One human, one Zhaan. Both helpless. Both waiting. Hours passed like years. Kestra could not sit. Could not rest. She paced through the shelter while other survivors watched with curious eyes. They whispered to each other. Look at the Zhaan. See how she acts. So emotional. So weak. Kestra did not care what they thought anymore. Sarah stayed near the communication center. She drank cup after cup of coffee, her hands shaking slightly. Every few minutes she asked Vril to check for any signal from Tommy. Every time Vril shook his head. The storm raged outside. Cameras showed nothing but white chaos. Wind speeds had reached 200 miles per hour. The entire station groaned and shook under the assault. 3 hours into the storm, something changed. A small light blinked on Vril's console. He leaned forward, adjusting his screens. What is it? Sarah asked immediately. An emergency beacon, Vril said slowly. Very weak. From Section 7, Maintenance Hub 12. Kestra was at his desk in an instant. That is where Selen is. The beacon. Someone activated it. Tommy? Sarah breathed. It has to be Tommy. Vril was already pulling up data. His expression darkened as he read. The beacon signal is weak and irregular. The temperature at that location is minus 190 degrees. The power in that hub is failing. Can you contact them? Kestra demanded. Vril tried. He sent communication signals to the hub's terminal. No response came back. The system may be damaged, Vril explained. Or whoever activated it may be unable to respond. We have to go now, Sarah said. Right now. While we know where they are. The storm has not passed, Vril replied. I cannot authorize a rescue mission. The risk is too great. There are 2 lives in that hub, Sarah said. Her voice was cold and hard. You will authorize it or I will go myself without authorization. Other humans in the shelter heard her words. They began gathering behind Sarah. 6 of them. 7. 8. All volunteers. All willing to risk the storm. Vril looked at them. Then he looked at Kestra. You would go as well? I will go, Kestra said. Her voice did not shake. Her hands were steady. Selen is my child. For a long moment, Vril said nothing. Then he let out a long breath. The storm is weakening. Not much but some. If you go now, in thermal suits with full gear, you might survive the journey. Might, Sarah repeated. Better odds than Tommy and that kid have right now. Vril made his decision. Suit up. Move fast. I want you there and back in 30 minutes. The rescue team assembled quickly. Sarah and 3 other humans. Kestra. And 2 more fans who were experienced with extreme cold rescue. They put on the heaviest thermal suits the station had. Triple layers. Heated elements powered by portable batteries. They gathered at the nearest access point to Section 7. Vril would open the blast door just long enough for them to pass through. Then it would seal behind them. If the storm got worse, they would be trapped on the other side. Ready? Vril asked. Kestra gripped the thermal suit tight. Somewhere in the frozen darkness beyond that door, Selen waited. And maybe, just maybe, a strange human who cared enough to try. Ready? Kestra said. The blast door opened. Wind screamed through the gap like a living thing. Ice and snow blasted into the shelter. The temperature dropped 50 degrees in seconds. The rescue team pushed forward into the storm. The door sealed behind them. And they entered the frozen hell of Section 7. The cold inside the maintenance corridors was unlike anything the rescue team had ever experienced. Even through their triple-layered thermal suits, they could feel it trying to reach them. The kind of cold that wanted to stop hearts and freeze blood solid. Sarah led the way with a handheld scanner. It tracked Tommy's beacon signal. The device showed them the path, but the path was not easy. Ice covered everything. The walls, the floor, even the ceiling dripped with frozen water that looked like teeth. Kestra stayed close behind Sarah. Every step felt too slow. Every second that passed felt like an eternity. Somewhere ahead, Selen was waiting. Dying. Maybe already dead. No. Kestra refused to believe that. The beacon was still transmitting. That meant someone was still alive. How much further? Kestra asked. Her voice came through the suit's communication system. Sarah checked the scanner. 2 more corridors. Maybe 300 meters. 300 meters. Such a short distance. But in this cold, it might as well be 300 miles. The team moved as fast as they dared. The ice made the floor treacherous. One of the Morphans slipped and nearly fell. The others caught him before he hit the ground. They passed through a junction where 3 corridors met. One path was completely blocked by ice. A coolant pipe had burst and flooded the passage. The water had frozen into a solid wall of blue ice. This way, Sarah directed them down a different corridor. The wind found gaps in the station's hull. It howled through cracks and broken seals. The sound was like voices screaming. Like the station itself was crying out in pain. Kestra's suit display showed the outside temperature. Minus 210 degrees. Nothing should survive in this. Nothing could. But the beacon still blinked on Sarah's scanner. Weak. Irregular. But there. They reached Maintenance Hub 12. The door was partially open. Ice had formed in the doorway, holding it in place. 2 of the humans pulled out tools. They chipped at the ice carefully. Too much force and they might damage the door mechanism. Then they would never get in. Kestra wanted to scream at them to move faster. But she held her tongue. They were doing everything they could. The ice finally gave way. The door slid open with a grinding sound. The rescue team rushed inside. The hub was small. Just a room with computer terminals and equipment storage. Emergency lights cast everything in dim orange glow. And there, slumped against the far wall, was Tommy Wright. Sarah cried out and ran to him. The other humans followed. Kestra's eyes were not on Tommy. They were on the bundle of cloth pressed against his chest. Thermal suit pieces. A jacket. Even Tommy's shirt. All wrapped around something small. Kestra crossed the room in 3 long strides. Her hands shook as she carefully pulled back the layers of cloth. Yellow eyes blinked up at her. Weak. Confused. But alive. Selen, Kestra breathed. Her voice broke on the name. The child made a soft sound. Those small scales were pale, almost gray from the cold. But Selen was breathing. The child was alive. Behind her, Sarah was checking Tommy. He's unconscious. His core temperature is way too low. We need to get him warm now. One of the Morphans pulled out emergency heat packs. They activated them and pressed them against Tommy's body. Another Morphan wrapped Tommy in a thermal blanket. His hands, Sarah said. Her voice was thick with tears. Look at his hands. Kestra glanced over. Tommy's hands were exposed. No gloves. The fingers were dark blue, almost black. Severe frostbite. Maybe beyond saving. He gave the child everything, one of the humans whispered. Every piece of clothing. All his warmth. Everything. Sarah found Tommy's data pad on the floor beside him. She activated it. A message was recorded there. Tommy's voice, weak and shaking from cold. If anyone finds this, the kid needs constant warmth. Keep the child against skin contact. Zhaan can't regulate their own temperature. Don't let the child fall asleep. Keep talking. Keep the child awake. The message continued with more instructions. How to check for hypothermia. How to slowly raise body temperature without causing shock. Detailed, careful instructions to keep Selen alive. The message ended with just 4 words. Take care of the kid. Not goodbye. Not a message to his family or friends. Just instructions to save a child he barely knew. Sarah pressed her face against Tommy's shoulder. Her body shook with sobs. Kestra held Selen close. She looked at Tommy's still form. This human. This strange, warm creature who laughed easily and always said hello in the corridors. Who brought small treats to children of all species. Who never asked for anything in return. He had given everything. Literally everything. His warmth. His clothes. His hands. Maybe his life. For a Zhaan child. For Selen. For a species that had never shown him kindness or friendship. For people who thought emotions were weakness and compassion was foolish. All of Kestra's beliefs, everything she had been taught, crumbled in that moment. Strength was not the absence of feeling. Strength was feeling everything and choosing to act anyway. Courage was not cold logic. Courage was this. Wrapping a freezing child in your only warmth and accepting death so another might live. The Zhaan had not been strong. They had been empty. They had confused hardness with power. They had mistaken cruelty for wisdom. We need to move, one of the Morphans said. Both of them need medical attention now. The team worked quickly. They wrapped Tommy in more thermal blankets and lifted him carefully. His body was frighteningly cold. Like lifting a statue of ice. Sarah carried Tommy's data pad. She held it like something precious. Like something sacred. Kestra kept Selen pressed against her chest. The child was warming slowly inside the thermal suit. Those yellow eyes were more focused now. Selen recognized her. Small arms wrapped around Kestra's neck. For the first time in her life, Kestra felt her own eyes burn with something that might be tears. The Zhaan did not cry. They did not feel such overwhelming emotions. But Kestra was not like other Zhaan anymore. She had changed. Tommy Wright had changed her without ever trying to. Just by being who he was. Just by showing what true strength looked like. The journey back to the main shelter took forever. Every step was careful. Every meter was earned. They could not afford to fall. Could not afford to drop either of the 2 lives they carried. When they finally reached the shelter, medical teams rushed forward. They took Tommy and Selen to the emergency medical center. Kestra tried to follow. A doctor stopped her. You need to be checked too. You were exposed to extreme cold. I need to stay with Selen, Kestra said. Your child is being cared for. The best thing you can do is let us make sure you are healthy. Kestra wanted to argue. But she was too tired. Too overwhelmed. She let them lead her to a medical bed. As she lay there being scanned and warmed, Kestra thought about Tommy's message. Take care of the kid. Such simple words. Such profound meaning. He had taken care of Selen when no one else could. When it cost him everything. When he had no reason to accept that a child needed help. That was compassion. That was the thing Kestra had never understood. Never valued. Until now. The medical center smelled of antiseptic and warmth. Kestra sat in the waiting area for 3 hours before a doctor finally came to speak with her. The doctor was human, an older woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Your child will be fine, the doctor said. Selen is young and resilient. Another hour in that cold would have been fatal. But Tommy Wright kept the child warm long enough. Selen will make a full recovery. Relief flooded through Kestra. Her scales actually felt warm for a moment. And the human? Tommy Wright. The doctor's expression changed. Became more guarded. He is alive. Barely. His core body temperature was dangerously low when you found him. We almost lost him twice during treatment. But he will recover? The doctor hesitated. He will live. But there is permanent damage. Severe frostbite to his extremities. We had to amputate 2 fingers on his right hand. The pinky and ring finger. We saved the others, but they will have reduced sensation and mobility. Kestra felt something twist inside her chest. Tommy had lost part of himself. Given pieces of his body to save Selen. When can I see him? Kestra asked. He is still unconscious. It may be several days before he wakes. You can see your child now though. Selen has been asking for you. Kestra followed the doctor to a recovery room. Selen lay in a small bed, wrapped in heated blankets. Those yellow eyes lit up when Kestra entered. "Mother," Selen said weakly. Kestra moved to the bedside. For a moment she did not know what to do. Zhaan parents did not embrace their children. Did not offer physical comfort. That was not their way. But Kestra was learning that the old ways were not always right. She reached out and took Selen's small hand in her own. "I am here," she said softly. "It was so cold," Selen whispered. "I was scared. But the warm one found me. He talked to me. Told me stories. Kept me safe." "The warm one is named Tommy," Kestra said. "And yes, he kept you very safe." "Where is he?" "I want to thank him. He is resting. He was very cold too. But he will be well soon." Selen's eyes started to close. The child was exhausted. He was nice. Not like other big ones. He cared. Yes, Kestra thought. He cared. That simple, powerful thing that her species had forgotten how to do. 4 days passed before Tommy woke. Kestra visited the medical center every day. She sat in the waiting area for hours, even though the doctors told her it might be weeks before Tommy regained consciousness. But on the 4th day, Sarah Mills found Kestra in the waiting area. "He's awake," Sarah said. "Tommy is asking questions." Being his usual stubborn self. Kestra stood immediately. "Can I see him?" He asked about the kid first thing. "I told him Selen is fine." He seemed relieved. Sarah paused. "I think he would like to meet you. Meet Selen's mother." Kestra followed Sarah to Tommy's room. She felt nervous. She who had never been nervous in her life. Who prided herself on logical thinking and emotional control. But nothing felt logical anymore. Nothing felt controlled. Tommy lay in a medical bed looking small and tired. His right hand was heavily bandaged. His skin still looked pale, almost gray. But his eyes were open and alert. Sarah left them alone. Kestra stood in the doorway. She did not know what to say. How did you thank someone for giving up pieces of themselves? What words existed for that kind of debt? "Hey," Tommy said. His voice was rough but friendly. "You must be Selen's mom. The doctors told me about you. Said you went into the storm to find us." "You saved my child," Kestra said. The words came out stiff and formal. Tommy smiled slightly. "Kid was in trouble. Couldn't just leave the little one. You almost died. You lost your fingers." Tommy glanced at his bandaged hand. "Yeah, that's not great. But I'm alive. Selen is alive. That's what matters." Kestra moved closer to the bed. She stared at this human who treated sacrifice like it was nothing. Like it was just the normal thing to do. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you give everything for a Zhaan child? My species has never shown friendship to humans. We consider you too emotional. Too weak." Tommy was quiet for a moment. Then he shrugged, which seemed to hurt because he winced. "I don't think about it like that. Selen is just a kid. Kids need help. Doesn't matter what species. Doesn't matter if their parents like me or not. It just matters that a kid was scared and cold and needed someone." "But you knew you might die." "Yeah, I knew. But what was I supposed to do? Walk away? Let a child freeze alone in the dark?" Tommy shook his head. "I couldn't do that. No human could. It's just not in us." Kestra felt her throat tighten. The Zhaan did not cry. But she was close to it now. "I do not understand your species. You give without expecting anything back. You care about strangers. You sacrifice for those who would not do the same for you." "Maybe that's the point," Tommy said quietly. "We do it because others wouldn't. We care because caring matters. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Kestra had no response to that. She simply stood there, looking at this damaged, generous human who had taught her more about strength in 4 days than her entire species had taught her in 40 years. "Can I meet Selen?" Tommy asked. "I'd like to see how the kid is doing." "Selen asks about you every day," Kestra said. "The child wants to thank the warm one who kept the cold away." Tommy smiled. A real smile that reached his tired eyes. "Warm one. I like that." Weeks passed. Tommy's recovery was slow but steady. He learned to use his hand again despite the missing fingers. The doctor said he adapted remarkably well. But Kestra could see the small struggles. The things that were harder now. The tasks that took longer. Tommy never complained. He made jokes about his new and improved hand. He told people he was becoming more aerodynamic. Selen visited him every day. The child brought drawings and small gifts. Shiny rocks. Pretty ice crystals. Things that meant something to a young Zhaan. Tommy kept every single one. Kestra watched them together. Watched Tommy teach Selen human card games with his damaged hand. The child laughed as Tommy pretended to be bad at the game. Selen did not know that Tommy was letting the child win. But Kestra knew. She watched Tommy lean down to listen seriously as Selen explained some complicated thought about ice formation. He asked questions, showed genuine interest, treated her child like Selen's thoughts mattered. This was the thing the Zhaan had never understood. Caring for another being did not make you weak. It made you strong enough to look beyond yourself. Strong enough to give when you had little. Strong enough to love when love was difficult. Months after the storm, Kestra found Tommy and Selen in the station's common area. They sat at a table, cards spread between them. Selen was laughing. Tommy was smiling. His damaged hand dealt cards with practiced ease. Kestra sat down at the table. "May I join?" she asked. Both Tommy and Selen looked surprised. Then Tommy grinned. "Always room for one more. Fair warning though, Selen is getting really good at this game. The kid might take all your credits." Selen bounced excitedly. "I will teach you, mother. It is not hard once you understand." Kestra picked up the cards Tommy dealt her. She did not really understand the game. Did not know the rules. But she tried anyway. Because trying mattered. Because showing interest in what Selen loved mattered. Because being together, sharing this small moment, mattered more than being perfect. Tommy caught her eye across the table. He nodded slightly. Like he understood what this moment meant to her. Like he knew how far she had come from that cold, logical scientist who thought emotions were weakness. Kestra nodded back. Outside the station windows, snow fell gently. But inside, in this warm room with these two beings who had changed her life, Kestra finally understood what it meant to be truly strong. It meant caring when caring was hard. It meant giving when giving cost everything. It meant opening your heart even when your heart might break. It meant being human. Even if you were not human at all. Selen won the card game. Tommy cheered. Kestra felt something she had never felt before. Joy. Pure, simple, uncomplicated joy. And for the first time in her life, the cold did not feel like home anymore.